An American couple.
Hi, I'm Glenn.
And I'm Jane.
And we're an American couple. And for years, we traveled across the United States camping out of the back of our 1973 MG Midget. But we decided that we wanted to kind of move up a little bit in the world. And we purchased this 1973 GMC motorhome. And we're in the process of renovating it the way we want to do it.
Updating it to be a little bit more modern so it has more modern conveniences.
So the project for the weekend is we're putting a new ceiling in the camper. And if you have followed some of our videos already on the GMC, one of the things that we're doing primarily with this build is everything we're building, because of budgetary reasons, we're doing it off of Facebook Marketplace. So the ceiling that we're putting in here, we purchased off of Facebook Marketplace from a guy who had a whole pile of this textured fake wood masonite siding. And we thought, actually, we really liked it to begin with, and it was a fairly good price. I think we got it for about $10 a sheet, I think it was. So it was real cheap. But we got half of the ceiling done, and then we realized that to completely finish the rest of the ceiling, we have to run it up to the plastic portion of the camper up front that sits over the driver's area. And we had that pulled out of the camper, and it was sitting in our backyard. And when we pulled it back out, we realized it's actually in pretty bad shape. So that shell actually has to go in first before we can continue putting the new ceiling in. So we're gonna go ahead and work on the shell today. It's a 50-year-old piece of molded plastic, and they're very difficult to find. And if you can find one, they're kind of expensive. And I think we can probably fix ours between
He's pretty handy.
Between fixing the cracks and either bondoing or epoxying all the different holes up on it, I think we can get this back to usable shape, but we have to do that first. So that's going to be the project for the day. All right, this is the plastic panel that I'm speaking about, and any of you all that own a GMC and have actually taken one of these down can understand exactly how brittle this thing actually is. I mean, 50 years ago, they didn't make plastic very well, and it wasn't designed to last this long, and these things sitting in the heat all the time has caused them to get really brittle and such. And this particular one has cracks all over the entire top of it. It actually has a hole cut out, which I'm not even exactly sure what that was for. I mean, there's a big chunk also missing out of the bottom down here. So what we're gonna try to do is we're gonna use one of those plastic mending tools, and I'll show you that in a second. And we're gonna try to go ahead and adhere all of the joints and cracks together first, so we can get the stability of the unit back together. Once we're there, we're going to go ahead and epoxy or bondo. Haven't figured out which one's going to work best on this particular material. Probably it's going to be epoxy. Then we'll cover all the cracks up. Then we'll sand it, we'll try to texture it, and then we'll try to paint it. One of the other things, it has these large cutout holes here, and these originally, I believe, were pieces of wood mounted that actually had lights on them. I think I've also seen people had speakers in these as well, so I'm not exactly sure what's supposed to go in there, but I can tell you what's going back in there. We're going to go ahead and cut aluminum back in this piece and bolt them in place. Then if we ever want to mount something in the future, we'll have a sturdy substrate to mount on, whether it's either speakers, lights, or whatever it's going to be. So that part of the project is going to be the most difficult, and that's going to probably take us at least a couple days just to get it held together and then sanded, finished, and then we'll probably paint it. Okay, can you see that? Okay. All right, so we're going to try to get a piece lined up as straight as possible. This brake is actually a pretty good one. We're going to go ahead and turn the tool on, and it takes about 3 seconds for it to heat up. And instead of pushing it all the way through the plastic, you're just going to let it go about halfway, wiggle a little, and stop, and then remove it. Takes about 10 seconds for that to cool off, but now you've built a metal joint across the plastic, which gives you strength. And we'll do that for about 150 times on this thing, all over this. And hopefully that will fix a lot of these cracks from getting any worse.
Okay, my opinion, it kind of looks like stitches.
They're plastic stitches.
Yeah, plastic stitches. Okay, what have we got upside down this time?
It's easier at this angle.
So what's the point of wiggling it?
I kind of moves the plastic around, kind of on top of it. I don't know. I just tried it, made it look right. I thought it felt like I should do that. I don't know.
What in the directions?
I didn't read the directions. They're in Chinese. But it does seem to work. They do have other different designs other than just the squiggly one. Like they have one for corners and stuff. And I know there's one down there that's got a corner that we're probably going to do. So, oops. You have to kind of let it hold for a second and just like that.
Awesome.
This one we're going to try to put at the end to keep the crack from getting worse.
That would be good. You can smell the plastic.
I've learned if you let it cool for just a second, it's a little easier for the tool to come out. Yeah, see, that's actually a really good one. You can't see any of the metal across it. 10 down, 10,000 to go. I think they use these things for repairing car bumper covers. I think that's what it's supposed to be for. So pro tip with using this tool, this part of it really doesn't get hot. It's only these staples themselves. So
is it warm?
It gets warm, but it doesn't get hot. So you don't have to really worry about burning yourself with this thing. Try to get that one together. There's a little light on the end.
So does that just turn on automatically when you push it in?
Yep, it's for old people. One crack down, about 300 to go. And all these little wires, when you cut them off, end up in the floor.
Be careful where you walk.
The big crack in the back here. Obviously there's nothing left to glue together on this thing, so I do a little hobby vacuum forming, and I had a piece of this black ABS plastic, and if you notice it very similar matches the grain to the original piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount this here. I'm going to cut the original piece out, epoxy it in, and then try to clean up the edges. And I think structurally it'll probably be strong enough and hopefully will match well enough that when I'm done with it you really can't tell. Stuff cuts fairly easy, not super, but. Okay, after a night of it curing, I've gone ahead and placed a couple of the cracks that are very large that I didn't have any extra pieces for, and I went ahead and filled them full of epoxy. I built a little frame out of basically tape underneath it and made it somewhat flat, and then I just poured it in. They actually came out pretty good. There's two of them here on the back side, and after I did these, I realized most of this is probably going to be covered up by the new ceiling that we're going to put in, but it was good practice anyway because I got a few more to do on the other side. The next thing is we're going to tackle these large holes on either side. And originally I thought about using a piece of aluminum, but this ABS plastic matches so well, I figure I'm just going to go ahead and cut two pieces to fit in those holes. And then we'll go ahead and bolt those in place, and then we'll probably put the new lights right on top of those. Luckily, the ABS plastic, it cuts pretty easy with just a razor knife. So all you need is a razor knife and a straight edge and score it, and then you can just break it off. We took another look at these lights that we pulled down from the ceiling, and we assumed just because they were so yellow that they were actually old. But when we took the covers off, we realized that the insides actually were LEDs, so they're obviously not that old. So we decided to go ahead and refurbish these, put a new switch in, and reuse them, and probably place them right back on top of the plastic pieces that we just made. All right, we're coming down to the wire on this project. We've got only a few more pieces left to do. One of them is this curved piece that goes on the front. I think it was maybe possibly where they originally may have had a rear view mirror. I can't see why you would really need one in one of these, but that's what it looks like it was for. So I'm gonna go ahead and heat this and bend it into place. And once I get the correct shape, then I'm gonna go ahead and cut it out. The epoxy is all dry on all of the cracks. So basically a little bit of sanding on that, and then we'll go ahead and put a little bit of texture to cover up some of the spots, and then tomorrow we should be able to paint it. I'm gonna bend the ABS plastic by using one of these little micro torches. These things are really hot, and it doesn't take that much temperature actually to bend this plastic. So as long as I don't burn it, it should go pretty well. Well, the basic shape is there, but I'm gonna have to do a little bit of fine tuning with the torch and maybe something like the end of a stick or a pencil tip to push it down a little bit, but we're getting close. Well, that's not perfect, but I think that'll get us a start to get it cut out, and then we can melt it into shape a little bit more as we go. I wanted to go ahead and wipe it down with paint thinner first before I went much farther, and I looked in my cabinet and I grabbed this off the shelf and I thought, oh, well, there's lacquer thinner. I said, I got paint thinner also. So I reached up and grabbed the other one. I went, oh, okay, here it is. Well, unfortunately, this one's paint stripper. So I almost made a mistake, put paint stripper right on the things that I've just repainted. So luckily I caught that in time. What we got to do is let it dry for a while, then we're going to steel wool it to take some of the sheen off it, and that pretty much should do it. Ta-da! All right, well, before we can actually install the shell in the ceiling, we need to clean up some of the wiring that's up in there. I went ahead and pulled down some of the insulation that the previous owner had put in here. This is just regular poly insulation. There's actually some better quality insulation up in here, so I'm sure there's been at least one person up in the ceiling before I have. So as far as wiring goes, the biggest issue is trying to figure out what is what. It does appear that the previous owner did have speakers up in those corners up on top of the shell, but there's also an extra pair of wires as well that I'm assuming that was either up there for lighting from the original when it was originally made or what. And that happens to be the green and orange pair that's here. I really didn't find them hooked to anything. They were just coiled up in here behind the insulation. They obviously at one time were hooked to something. So I went ahead and removed the speaker cable from either side because we're obviously not going to use that. And the orange and the green that are spares run all the way across. They go down to what I call the A-post, which is right behind the driver's seat. I'll go ahead and cut those off and splice those into our 12-volt system. The wires up in the top here that are going to be left are going to be for the 5 marker lights that are on top of the camper presently. So once I get all this cleaned up, buttoned up in place, and put the insulation back in, I think we're about ready to install the original shell that goes in here. I think the old school staple gun is probably just as good of a choice to do this to keep these wires up here. Well, we got the ceiling up and in place. Once we got the shell in place, it wasn't too big of a deal just to run it up, butt it up to it, and screw it in place. We have main ribs that go front to back on the camper that cover the seams that go this way. And then obviously there's rib pieces going across here. Those are just to cover the joints as the boards ended on each side. All in all, it looks pretty good. We really decided that we don't like the gray. Realistically, it needs to be a little more white, so we're probably going to whitewash this. In the next video, we're probably going to do some tests on whitewashing it and seeing what we like best and how it fits and everything else. The big thing was when we were so happy about getting the rest of the ceiling in, we completely forgot to cut the hole for the skylight that we put in. So then we've got to come back and cut the hole for the skylight and reframe it. We did get all the lighting and the wiring in. We got the 110 volt wire pulled up here for our next cool project that we'll also show you in the next video, that's going in this place right here where the front vent is. So realistically, that's probably going to finish it for this video. If you're not a subscriber of our channel right now, please consider subscribing. Push the little subscription button that's right down there, and also push the notifications so you get notifications when we drop the next video, and we'll see you in the next one. So take care.